this electrification, what does it mean for the car world? In the watch world, there's something that's known as the Quartz crisis, which is when in the 1970s, the introduction of quartz watches happened and all the mechanical watches were rendered obsolete, right? Because quartz watches were much more accurate. They were, they ran on a battery. They were, the timekeeping was done by sending, I believe, a current through the quartz crystal, which would then resonate at a certain frequency, which you could then measure very accurately and use that to count, how many ticks, how many times it had resonated to then increment, the second, versus a mechanical watch was at a much lower frequency. Plus, quartz watches were much cheaper to produce. So, over that time period, the watch world, the watch manufacturers really had to reinvent themselves, and I think that's where we started to see, watches becoming a luxury product rather than a utilitarian product, right? And I think there's going to be a similar phenomenon take place in the car world. I think, cars are increasingly becoming more disposable and almost like just these big electronics, right? There's so much, not just in the battery, but also in like how the car is operated, the types of decisions that are being made, are increasingly made by computer systems, right? And it's also this question of, will the standard combustion engine cars become obsolete one day, right? And it seems like it's definitely going that way, given, the benefits of electric, both from an environmental standpoint, and from and I think just the general efficiency standpoint. So the question was will combustion engine cars become like, luxury mechanical watches in 10, 20 years, where I don't think they're going to go away because there's always going to be this enthusiast audience. There's people, still car enthusiasts that swear by, combustion cars, swear by, manual transmission cars and the, visceral feeling of driving, which I also personally agree with. But of course, from an everyday practical standpoint, you're probably going to go with an electric car, especially if the economics of that change and they become more affordable.
Yeah, I think it raises so many questions, because obviously with electronic cars comes like the automation question as well. But just for electric cars alone, we were talking to there's a research group that's funded by a lot of the key insurers in the UK, and so basically they invite the manufacturers to come crash test the vehicles, new vehicles coming to market, and they consume the data and feed it back to insurers to basically allow them to understand how insurable a car is. And so some of the newer manufacturers coming to market, the cars are uninsurable because if you crash it, even if it's just like a general fender bender, you destroy so much of the kit on the car, and right. It's expensive to replace.
Right. It's like the bumper has a bunch of sensors in it. The headlights are these fancy. Exactly. It's like $1,000 for a bumper, $1,000 for a headlight. You just get into a little fender bender. It could be a good chunk of the maybe value of the car just to replace.
Right, and so that's kind of born from this move to subscription model stuff as well. So you have, I believe it's the Audi e-tron comes with a lot of the kit inbuilt in the car. And so even if it isn't turned on, it's on the car. And so if you're not paying for the subscription, you could at some point in time enable it, so it's on there. So it begs the question then: is your insurer going to pay to replace something that you weren't using on the car when you crash it? And so there's all kinds of questions around that, or things like engine modifications done with over-the-air software updates. How does you take your insurance policy out once a year? How does the insurer know that suddenly you've got an extra 10 or 20 horsepower on your car? It's completely changed the risk profile of the vehicle.
Right.
So it's all kinds of really, really interesting problems that are going to be sort of presented, even with in accidents with electric cars, in the fact that because of how the cabling's done, and obviously there's live electricity in the car, the risks are different around when you're rescuing someone from a crashed electric car. And so it has to be taken away, and it has to be like cut into in a different way and stuff. So there's all kinds of things to, it's really, really fascinating.